Malcolm,
Are you prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the United States for its treatment of American Negroes?
Oh, yes. Number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts.
We want freedom by any means necessary. We want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary. We don't feel that in 1964, living in a country that is supposedly based upon freedom and supposedly the leader of the free world, we don't think that we should have to sit around and wait for some segregationist congressmen and senators and a president from Texas in Washington, D.C. to make up their mind that our people are due now some degree of civil rights. No, we want it now, or we don't think anybody should have it.
Uhuru, welcome to We Charge Colonialism, Black August edition. I am Ikemba Ojore, a community organizer and host of We Charge Colonialism Media. Black August is honored every year to commemorate the fallen freedom fighters of the Black Liberation Movement, to call for the release of political prisoners in the United States, to condemn the oppressive conditions of U.S. prisons, and to emphasize the continued importance of the Black liberation struggle. Observers of Black August commit to higher levels of discipline throughout the month. This can include fasting from food and drink, frequent physical exercise and political study, and engagement in political struggle. In short, the principles of Black August are study, fast, train, and fight. During the COVID shutdown, myself with other organizers launched the first Black August Power Hour study by examining George Jackson's Blood in My Eye. We are reviving the Black August Power Hour study with Brother Malcolm X, and we have reached out to organizers within the Black Liberation Movement to participate. We will be meeting every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to analyze and discuss the philosophy of Malcolm X. Do join us on YouTube or Facebook for this special commemoration of Black August and Black resistance. Our goal is for organizers within the Black Liberation Movement to unpack Brother Malcolm X's views on colonial capitalism in a contemporary context, to unpack resistance in the movement against colonialism from the lens of Minister Malcolm X. We will be reading select texts and discussing related questions to uplift the historical events that has taken place throughout the month of August. Now, welcome to the Black August Power Hour. Hey, peace. Thanks for joining us. This is another Black August Power Hour, and this is our final Black August Power Hour. And I just want to appreciate everyone who joined us throughout the month of August. Whether it was live or you tuned in later, or those who were part of the panel discussion, just want to give my appreciation for you all being here and making this Black August Power Hour happen. Because Black August is coming to a close doesn't mean that the work is coming to a close. We're going to continue to uplift these ideas, the ideas of Malcolm X and other freedom fighters, and uplift our political prisoners. We're going to carry the work on throughout 365, throughout the year, right? But this was a special time to really acknowledge our freedom fighters and resistance movements. So today we're going to continue to look at the message to the grassroots. I'm going to pass it over to Tone, who's going to read today and facilitate the discussion with our organizers. If this is your first time joining us, make sure you subscribe to our channel, We Charge Colonialism, and also follow us on all social media platforms, as well as like and share this podcast so we can have others join this discussion with us. So at this time, I'm going to share, and the mic is in your hands. So,
peace, everyone. Can I be heard?
You can be heard, yeah.
Okay, and can everyone see the screen?
I can see it on mine.
Okay. So yeah, as Akemba said, I hope everyone's Black August was fruitful. I hope people are communing, fasting, praying, training, and acknowledging our political prisoners and those on the inside. As mentioned, this is our last session, and we're going to end by continuing the reading of Message to the Grassroots, which was given on November 10th, 2023 at Reverend Albert Beach Church. I'll pick up the reading where Darren left off, and I believe it was within the second paragraph. Am I correct about that, Ethan?
Did you? Yeah, I'm sorry. You were a little low. Did you say something? You said something to me?
Oh, I was just saying I'm going to pick up like the second paragraph.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start the reading. When you want a nation, that's called nationalism. When the white man became involved in a revolution in this country against England, what was it for? He wanted this land so he could set up another white nation. That's white nationalism. The American Revolution was white nationalism. The French Revolution was white nationalism. The Russian Revolution, too, yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why do you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together? White nationalism. All the revolutions that are going on in Asia and Africa today are based on what?
Oh,
Black nationalism.
Okay, go ahead. Is this I'm sorry, I don't mean to stop you because I know we were about to last time we were reading, we were about to transition. All right, I'm gonna stop because it's the next paragraph. I apologize, but you can finish. We read this last time, but it's okay. Go ahead.
A lot of words. It's cool. A revolutionary is a Black nationalist. He wants a nation. I was reading some beautiful words by Reverend Cleage pointing out why he couldn't get together with someone else here in the city because all of them were afraid of being identified with Black nationalism. You are afraid of Black nationalism. You're afraid of revolution. And if you love revolution, you love Black nationalism. To understand this, you have to go back to what the young brother here referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro. Back during slavery, there were two kinds of slaves. There was a house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negroes, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near the master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save the master's house quicker than the master would. The house Negro, if the master said, "We got a good house here," the house Negro would say, "Yeah, we got a good house here." Whenever the master said "we," he said "we." That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick? We sick?" He identified himself with his master more than the master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, "Let's run away, let's escape, let's separate," the house Negro would look at you and say, "Man, you crazy? What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this?" That was the house Negro. In those days, he was called the house nigger. And that's what we call him today, because we still got some house niggers running around here. This modern house Negro loves his master. He wants to live near him. He'll pay 3 times as much as the house Negro, as the house is worth, just to live near his master, and then brag about it. "I'm the only Negro out here. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in this school. You're nothing but a house Negro." And if someone comes to you right now and says, "Let's separate," you say the same thing the house Negro said on the plantation. "What you mean separate? From America? This good white man? Where are you going to find a better job than you get here? I mean this. What you say, I left nothing in Africa. That's what you say. Why you left your mind in Africa?" On that same plantation, there was the field Negro. The field Negro were the masses. there were always more Negroes in the field than there were in the Negroes in the house. The Negro in the field caught hell. He ate leftovers. In the house, they ate high up on a hog. The Negro in the field didn't get nothing but what was left inside of the hog. They call them chitlins nowadays. In those days, they called them what they were, guts. That's what you were, a gut eater. And some of y'all are still gut eaters. The field Negro was beaten from morning to night. He lived in a shack, a hut. He wore old cast-off clothes. He hated his master. I say he hated his master. He was intelligent. That house Negro loved his master. But the field Negro, remember, they were in the majority and they hated the master. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try to put it out. The field Negro prayed for a wind, for a breeze. When the master got sick, the field Negro prayed that he die. If someone come to the field Negro and said, let's separate, let's run, he didn't say, where are we going? He'd say, any place is better than here. You've got field Negroes in America today. I'm a field Negro. The masses are the field Negroes. When they see this man's house on fire, you don't hear these little Negroes talking about our government is in trouble. They say the government is in trouble. Imagine a Negro, our government. I even heard one say our astronauts. They won't even let him near the plant. And our astronauts, our Navy, that's a Negro that's out of his mind. That's a Negro that's out of his mind. Just as the slave master of that day used Tom, the house Negro, to keep the field Negroes in check, the same old slave master today has Negroes who are nothing but modern Uncle Toms, 20th century Uncle Toms, to keep you and me in check, keep us under control, keep us passive and peaceful and nonviolent. That's Tom making you nonviolent. It's like when you go to the dentist and the man's going to take your tooth. You're going to fight him when he starts pulling. So he squirts some stuff in your jaw called Novocaine to make you think that they're not doing anything to you. So you sit there, and because you've got all that Novocaine in your jaw, you suffer peacefully, blood running all down your jaw, and you don't know what's happening because someone has taught you to suffer peacefully. The white man do the same thing to you in the streets when he wants to put a knot on your head and take advantage of you, and don't have to be afraid of you're fighting back. To keep you from fighting back, he gets these old religious Uncle Toms to teach you and me, just like Novocaine, suffer peacefully. Don't stop suffering, just suffer peacefully. As Reverend Cleach pointed out, let your blood flow in the streets. This is a shame, and you know he's a Christian preacher. If it's a shame to him, you know what it is to me. There's nothing in our book, the Quran, you call it the Koran, that teaches us to suffer peacefully. Our religion teaches us to be intelligent, be peaceful, be courteous, obey the laws, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hands on you, send him to the cemetery. That's a good religion. In fact, that's an old-time religion. That's that one Ma and Pa used to talk about, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's a good religion. And don't nobody resent that kind of religion being taught but a wolf who intends to make you his meal. This is the way it is with the white man in America. He's a wolf and you're sheep. Anytime a shepherd, a pastor, teach you and me not to run from the white man, and at the same time teach us not to fight the white man, he's a traitor to you and me. Don't lay down your life all by itself. No, preserve your life. It's the best thing you've got. And if you got to give it up, let it be even Stephen. The slave master took Tom and dressed him well, and fed him well, and even gave him a little education, gave him a long coat and a top hat, and made all the other slaves look up to him. Then he used Tom to control them. The same strategy that was used in those days is used today by the same white man. He takes a Negro, a so-called Negro, and make him prominent, build him up, politicize him, make him a celebrity. And then he becomes a spokesman for Negroes and a Negro leader. I would like to just mention just one other thing else quickly, and that is the method that the white man uses, how the white man uses these big guns or Negro leaders against the Black Revolution. They are not part of the Black Revolution. They're used against the Black Revolution. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights struggle in America reached its low point. King became bankrupt, almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble. Plus, it was in trouble, period, with the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence. Local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson in Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders began to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by those Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you, they kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the street. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. He came to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall right after that, Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get them out of jail and spend a lot of money. And then they accused King and Corps of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I've got it in documented evidence in the newspaper. Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and farmers started attacking the both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature began to attack each other, they began to lose control of the Negro masses. And the Negro was out there in the streets. They was talking about we was going to march on Washington. By the way, right at that time, Birmingham had exploded. And the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the cracker in the back and bust them up upside their heads. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent the troops down to Birmingham. So, and right after that, Kennedy got on television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said that he was going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about how they were going to boycott or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said that they were going out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no planes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the Black Revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street, scared the white man to death, scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that the Black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called on Wilkins. They called on Randolph. They called in these Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look at you. Look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. The Carlisle Hotel is owned by the Kennedy family. That's the hotel Kennedy spent the night at 2 nights ago. It belongs to his family. A philanthropic society headed by a white man named Stephen Fourier called all the top civil rights leaders together at the Carlisle Hotel. And he told them that by you all fighting each other, you are destroying the civil rights movement. And since you're fighting over money from white liberals, let us set up what is known as the Council for United Civil Rights Leadership. Let's form this council, and all civil rights organization will belong to it. And we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you how tricky the white man is. And as soon as they got it formed, they elected Whitney Young as the chairman. And who do you think became the co-chair? Stephen Collier, a white man, a millionaire. Powell was talking about it down at Cabo Hall today. This is what he was talking about. Powell knows it happens. Randolph knows it happened. Wilkins knows it happened. King knows it happened. Everyone that is so-called the Big Six, they know it happened. Once they formed it, the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the Big Six, and told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more. $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they're nothing but Frank James and Jesse James. And the what do you
call it?
Oh, thank you. What should we call it? Thank you. As soon as they got the setup organized, the white man made available to them top public relation experts, opened the news media across the country at their disposal, and then they began to project the Big Six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was talking this march talking on Haskins Street. Is Haskins Street still there? On Haskins Street? You was talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue and out on, what do you call it? Fillmore Street and Central Avenue and 32nd Street and 63rd Street. That's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the Big Six at the head of it and made them march. They became the march. They took it over. And the first move they made after they took it over, they invited Walter Reuther, a white man. They invited a priest, a rabbi, and an old white preacher. Yes, an old white preacher. The same white element that put Kennedy in power. Labor, the Catholics, the Jews, and liberal Protestants. The same clique that put Kennedy in power joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you've got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What do? You integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep. This is what they did with the March on Washington. They joined it. They didn't integrate it, they infiltrated it. They joined it. They became a part of it, took it over. And as they took it over, it lost its militancy. They ceased to be angry. They ceased to be hot. They ceased to be uncompromising. Why? It even ceased to be a march. It became a picnic, a circus. Nothing but a circus with clowns and all. You had one right here in Detroit. I saw it on television with the clowns leading it. White clowns and black clowns. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I can prove what I'm saying. If you think I'm telling you wrong, you bring me Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and James Farmer and those other three and see if they'll deny it over a microphone. No, it was a sellout. It was a takeover. When James Baldwin came in from Paris, they wouldn't let him talk because they couldn't make him go by the script. Burt Lancaster read the speech that Baldwin was supposed to make. They wouldn't let Baldwin get up there because they know Baldwin's liable to say anything. They controlled it so tight. They told those Negroes what time to hit town, how to come, where to stop, what signs to carry, what songs to sing, what speech they could make, and what speech they couldn't make. And then they told them to get out of town by sundown. Mm-hmm. And every one of those towns, every one of those towns was out of town by sundown. Now I know you don't like my saying this, but I can back it up. It was a circus, a performance that beat anything Hollywood could ever do. The performance of the year. Reuther and those other three devils should get an Academy Award for the best actors because they acted like they really loved Negroes and fooled a whole lot of Negroes. And the 6 Negro leaders should get an award too for the best supporting cast.
Hey, appreciate that reading, Tone. That was powerful, man. Just hearing you read and thinking about this speech and what Malcolm was laying out. We need more of this today, of what Malcolm was doing at that particular time. We just had the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington on August the 28th. I think Al Sharpton and the gang was down in D.C. Marching. I don't know if anyone here, I wasn't able to make it, but if anyone is here that was down there, can speak about it. But I think this is fitting that we are doing this speech, Message to the Grassroots. This is the 60th anniversary also of this speech, and we will be having a symposium in Boston, November the 10th. So I want to encourage folks to get your plane tickets if you're not in the area. And if you're in the area, make sure that you come out to the symposium that's happening in Boston, November 10th. It's 60th year, the Message to the Grassroots speech, and we'll be really focusing on the 6 years that Malcolm has spent in prison, which was in Massachusetts. So you'll be hearing more about the symposium as we move forward and get closer to that date. So now, we're going to just have a discussion around this. There's a lot that was said. So Tone is going to facilitate the discussion. There's some questions as usual, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ikemba. Absolutely. And as folks know who was with us last week, we're going to continue on those questions. And we ended with the land question. But today we're going to start with a question regarding the speech as a whole. So how does this speech contextualize how we should connect with members of the community who are not part of the Vanguard organization or cadre? So again, how does this speech contextualize how we should connect with members of our community who are not part of Vanguard organizations or cadre? That's the first question. And as always, feel free to raise your hand or put yourself on staff.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's a great question because when you hear Malcolm lay out what happened with the March on Washington, he was very clear on who started the March on Washington. It was the masses of Black people who was tired of being colonized, was tired of being oppressed and exploited. The organizing was taking place in the alleys, in the ghettos, right? And the so-called Big Six, or these so-called leaders of the civil rights movement, wasn't at the head and wasn't organizing this March on Washington. So when we think about any movement, I mean, it's going to take any movement, any revolution, any change that takes place. It's not going to happen without the masses of people. And I think what this sort of shows is as people who consider themselves to be a part of the vanguard or cadre, we have to be able to create spaces and build institutions that will be able to meet the masses when they're ready to spark and bring about some sort of change. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be important to have organization. And because there was, even though the masses sort of were responding to their conditions, and there was sort of the spontaneous movement to march on Washington, who knows what would have happened, right? If they marched on Washington without this infiltration. But it shows that there was if the wrong people are put in place, and put in front of the masses of African people who are ready to revolt, then no real change will come about. No real revolution will take place. So we have to understand that. And so we've had several, I think, opportunities and examples recently, from Trayvon Martin to Mike Brown to George Floyd. And I think what that has showed was the vulnerability, not the vulnerability, but the inability of our movement, at that time and perhaps now, to be able to organize the masses of people when they're ready to revolt. So we should learn from that. I know I've been talking a lot, so
Yeah, I would also add, especially for those who are considering themselves, vanguard or cadre, there is a responsibility to connect with the people and not just speak in echo chambers or not just talking to, like what people would call the ops, right? And I think part of what we see Malcolm do is make it plain, right? He speaks in a way that people can understand. He's repeating, certain talking points. He's also connecting with things that they are familiar with. So this is comes with knowing the audience, and you can see that Malcolm has done research. Right, he talks about the paper, and this is something very common, where people were just very informed on what's happening, not just locally, but what's happening in the grand scheme of the movement. Right. And I think this is also super important for us to remember, especially in this day and age where digital media is all people's, I would say, primary, in some instances, only means of communicating outwardly to connect directly to the people, to connect with them in ways that they can understand. I think this is super important, and we see Malcolm doing this. And then also Malcolm contextualizing how these are people that we were made to love and admire and also put in place. And a few weeks back, we spoke about Dr. Hare discussing the leader of blacks versus black leaders, right? Who put these people in place? And so Malcolm is kind of sowing seeds, right? He's letting people think about things from a very practical standpoint. And then also you can see his the culmination of his intelligence, like articulating how he's seeing the landscape and in ways that other people can see and understand as well. I think that's really important, especially people who are considering themselves part of vanguard organizations or cadre, to know how to properly connect with the people. I see Psycho on Stack, so please feel free to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Tom. I was definitely going to echo a bit of what you said about kind of also what Akimba said too, about like being ready to like share the information when you see the times of like critical mass potentially getting there, right? Like being ready to share the information, let people know what's going on, educate the people that aren't in these institutions, that aren't in these meetings, rather than just silo away the information and laugh at everybody making the same mistakes. From that speech, I did get like a lot of anger from Malcolm, specifically against like all the Uncle Toms and stuff. And I feel like now that's still very much like a thing. Like even with those moments with George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, there were moments when people were ready to like stand up, fight back, and there were consistently people that kind of like posed as leaders and then just pacified everybody and just wasted our moments. And we got to continuously stand against that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Psycho. And so this kind of leads us to our next question around. Oh, we see Jordan on Stack, so we'll take Jordan and then we'll move on to the next question.
Thanks, Tom. I was thinking about this just in relation to what Psycho just said. I would say, I think that the masses of our people, right? Like when you're listening to Malcolm speak about the masses of our people understood themselves as field niggas and right, like as workers, and like we're pissed off with mass. I feel like now, right, the propaganda has been so strong to where all of us, even if we are field niggas, like we have house nigga aspirations, right? Like we want to be in the house, we want to have the good food, we want mass success, right? So now, like the idea of everyone being mad is a little dampened, right? Like, yeah, you have it in certain critical moments, right? In a 92, in a George Floyd, in a Trayvon, but you don't see it consistently, right? It's just in these singular moments, and it's usually rarely sustained. So I think that we have to be like clear and aware on like where are people at and just how disconnected like the rest of our folks are, right? Members of our community are from like vanguard organizations and cadres. And I think that's intentional, right? But I think that our people are so like persuaded by those quote unquote leaders, right? Those misleaders, right? So I think it's important for us to call that out and like to be critical of where we're at right now.
you, Psycho and Jordan. And you know what you're describing about the mislead, I unite with that really deeply, because I think a lot of our community, they can't even decipher the difference, like, because people are just not connected, right? Like, people are not in community. Very few organizers are actually really connected to people on the ground, and that's this is, to me, just another call to and a reminder to connect directly with people. So thanks for that. And our next question is going to be around the kind of bourgeoisie, capitalist, and leadership class, as we're describing. So, how has the Black petty bourgeoisie, capitalist, misleadership, and professional managerial class positioned themselves as tools of the white man against the position of Black nationalism today? Again, how has the Black petty bourgeoisie, capitalist, misleadership, and professional managerial class positioned themselves as tools of the white man against the position of Black nationalism today?
Yeah, I mean,
Jordan, and hang on a second. Jordan's on back, and you go.
right on.
Actually, let Kimba go since I just went.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just with the first issue that we have with this misleadership, right? Petty bourgeoisie. There's an ideological difference with Black nationalists that prevents them from aligning themselves with them, right? They share the same ideas and the same objectives and goals as the colonizer, you know, for one. And so they're able to put themselves in positions of relative power as a result of that. So, you know, when we go to cities, I'm here in Philadelphia, and we can have in the past Black mayors, you know, from John Street, from the Wilson Goods to John Streets, the Michael Nutters. We can have Black people in city council. We can have Black people just in positions of power. But there's no change in the status. There's no change in the economic conditions of Black people within the community, because these people are working against their interests. They're working to build up the colony. So they become tools of the quote unquote white supremacists, and they become tools of the colonizer by carrying on the program of the colonizer. And so anytime that there's someone who stands up and fights, attempts to fight against the colony and expose the colony, not just for its colonial policies, but its racist policies, the Black petty bourgeoisie, who are neo-colonialists, they're you know, the Uncle Toms that I wouldn't even say that they're the Uncle Toms. You know, they're worse than the Uncle Toms, because Uncle Tom at least knew that there was something fundamentally wrong with the system, right? He just didn't have the best strategy to go about destroying it. But these are people who are not even attempting to dismantle the system. They don't even see anything wrong with the system. They're looking for ways to exploit it and benefit from the system. So with that being said, it's difficult because they help. They puppet. They parrot with the colonizer. Tells them the ideas of the colonizer, the theories of the colonizer, and it just keeps the status quo the same. So I think that's one, you know, way that they do it. Well, I actually mentioned a few, but but those are some ways.
Thank you for that, Ikemba. I don't know. I think it's even more insidious than that, and I'm not sure I would like tokenism sounds like what you're describing, right? Where they may not be intending, or they're just looking out for self. But I think in this case of the Uncle Tom, I think they know what they're doing. I would absolutely call those folks Uncle Toms as well. But we have Psycho and then Jordan on staff.
Wait, wasn't it Jordan and done me? Sorry.
Right. Jordan did relinquish to Ikemba. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, y'all. Yeah, I think to that point, right? Like this group, and I'm like really, I know that I like take a really hard line on this, but I think that this group of Black misleaders are more insidious, right? They're more damaging because they position themselves as like with Black radical language, with Black radical alliances, right? How many times have we heard Jay-Z talk about Fred Hampton, right? And make that comparison, right? We see just the ability for folks to align themselves with Black excellence, right? And being pro-Black and what that looks like in 2023. Like Obama's on a Pan-African flag next to Malcolm when he dropped the most bombs on the continent of any other president. You know what I mean? So like, I think that the way that it's positioned now is so much more deadly, right? And it's accepted again, whereas there at least was like the calling out of the time, right? There was like, again, I'm in California. I'm thinking, I was teaching about the history of ethnic studies, and right, I assigned a reading about the burial of the Tom Negro, right, that these students had, and then how other folks followed. But I don't think that again is what we're seeing in 2023 with Instagram and all of those things, right? We're all trying to be popular, and so when that's the case, and money and your image is related to popularity and those things, you're able to you want to be under the guise of pro-Blackness, right? Like a Jay-Z, like a Rick Ross, but really you're still a Black capitalist exploiting the people, and then no one is calling you out because everyone wants to be like you. They want to fit in, right? You are reinforcing the system. Not only are you saying the system doesn't need to be destroyed, you're just saying like, we need our seats here. Like we can change it with our seats, right? Being at the table makes it okay, or I make the difference. And that's even more dangerous, I think, than where they were at when Malcolm.
Thank you for that, Georgia. And we'll take Cycle.
No, literally, I 100% agree. I feel like that is like what they've become, what they've done. They've positioned themselves as like the American dream, and kind of said that if we put our heads down and just work harder, we can get there too, and then we don't got to worry about any of the other stuff that people go through because they're just poor. I feel like nowadays it's hard to like it's harder to identify it because of how easy it is to just say you're pro-Black and be the first Black person in a space, no matter how you got there, and just now they just put out these aspirations for people to follow that are just completely like materialistic, exploitative, and bullshit. It's definitely tokenism. It's definitely exploitative. Some cool ass shit. I feel like they just need to go. They also owe us reparations.
That's right. And just to kind of wrap on that question, thank you both Jordan and Psycho and Ikemba. When we talk about like how what Malcolm says, so I appreciate Psycho bringing up the notion of the firsts, right? So we see what people are desiring and what their aspirations are like. And one of the issues about and how they confuse people is that they drape themselves in the language of revolutionaries, sometimes even the garb, right? And they're in revolutionary spaces, but they're working for self, right? They're working for their own interests. And like people want to believe in them. They want to believe like they're saying the right things. And a lot of these folks, align with the white power structure in terms of like legitimacy through the academy or having funding, right? And we see this often that like people who have the most degrees or like a lot of resources and, a lot of assets, like them being positioned as leaders, right? But like who put them in place? So I think this is really important to unpack, and I hope that the community continues to unpack this question and others outside of this. But thank you for those participating in this question. Our next question is going to dive a little deeper, which is how do puppets like the Big Six function today? So Malcolm named the Big Six, right? Malcolm had guts. How when we understand that they are puppets, or they're puppeteer, and he named who those were as well. How do puppets like the Big Six function today? I'm just gonna say that. Oh, go ahead, Vika. Or Jordan, I think that was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that right, we have to give an historical context, right? And so now, again, the ability to become a city council member, a mayor, a governor, a president, even, right? So obviously, like, part of our Big Six has now moved into electoral politics, and I think that is, like, by no coincidence, right? Like Rat Brown said, like, what better way to enslave a man than to give him the vote and tell him he's free? So, like, obviously, like, a very good play on the colonizer's part to give us those symbols. But also, obviously, again, we have folks like Sean King, or, you know, those social media personalities that are supposed to be leading us and, you know, be our voices, but that are really, they're, again, as psychos and coons, right? Puppets. They're and again, I think at this point we're even further and deeper into it. We don't have a Big Six anymore, right? We have a whole like population of these folks, right? Black elite. I mean, because now, again, it's not even just the quote unquote leaders. It's right. You can get LeBron to jump into this. You can get Cornel West to jump into this. You can get it right, like actors and entertainers and whoever else. And again, I know Malcolm spoke to that as well, right? But I think that the Big Six for us has evolved into what a lot of us call like the Blackness leadership class or the Black elite, and that again, because of capitalism and where they have been positioned and who has given them quote unquote power or influence, majority, right, the masses of our people do aspire to be those folks. And so now we're aspiring even to be the folks that are misleading us, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that, Jordan. I see Psycho and stuff.
No, that's true. And I also didn't really think about that point. It definitely makes me feel like the way Malcolm X had brought it up was like the Big Six were essentially, at least the way I understood it, was like essentially people who could like depower a movement, right? Like literally take the revolutionary spirit out of a movement under the guise of like blackness. So they're freaking coons. It really is, like Jordan just said, it really is like a number of them now. It's almost anybody that has like either a social media or a big political following can now then put themselves in a position or be placed in a position to like suppress the masses, right? Like when people were screaming abolition and all these other people were screaming defund, when people screaming hands up, fight back, and then all these other people screaming, nah, just stay peaceful. I try to stay out of like social media's presences and people. I don't really pay too much attention to the political people, but I definitely need to start so I can start naming them. But yeah, it's like Eric Adams would be like the top one, right? Because like my grandmother was talking to me about him when he was running, and now she's saying she don't like him. She don't like the way he sounds. She's not even in New York. She's not even in the country. But there's also an abundance of political figures, an abundance of social media figures who literally just kill the movement. Yeah, and I feel like the function is very much the same. It's just more of them now.
Yeah, wow. And one thing I think that both Psycho and Jordan alluded to is how like they offer something. It may be really minor, like whether they seem to like be the first person and appeal to people's emotions to, you know, break news, whether it's, you know, like they are leveraging their platform to talk about something and people are feeling like, oh, they're giving care, whether they're writing about a thing, they offer something. But when you really unpack, like, what is the basis of their work, like, they'll expose themselves. So one of the things we should really be encouraging our community to do is, like, they think about not just what people are doing, but also outcomes, right? And that's super important. So again, that question was, how do puppets like the Big Six function today? Psycho wrote, absolutely, right? Like, they want to make it where things have to funnel through them, right? This is really interesting. Like, they're constantly putting themselves first, platforming their brand, so to speak, using like what we understand neoliberalism, right, to be really important. Thank you for this. Does anyone have any additional comments to that before we move to our next question?
Yeah. So the Big Six, if you look at, and I agree with what everyone had put forth. I'm just going to add on to it. The Big Six, they were coming with a particular message. The Big Six is a part of a movement that was pushing a particular message of assimilating into the American culture, to integrate even deeper into the American culture. I guess to integrate into the system where they have more say, because I would say Black people have always been integrated into the system. We just didn't have any choice in what we can do within the system. And so they were coming with this message that things would be all right if we were given our rights. And then on the other side, what Malcolm is talking about in his speech, he's talking about having a nation of our own. He was putting the message of Black nationalism out. He was advocating for this path, for liberation for Black people. And so when we think about today, the Big Six, and as y'all mentioned, like, they come in so many different forms. The nonprofit organizations, right? I think these could be examples of how the Big Six functions today, to be created to solve problems and say, hey, things is all right. You just have to adjust to the system. We're going to help you adjust to the system, and not necessarily talking about having a nation of your own. And these organizations are funded. I feel like all three of the questions just tie right into each other, and we can really talk about the Blackness leadership. We can talk about what was the other question? They all sort of tie into each other. That brings us to this particular question. But I know we're short on time, but I think just like looking at as far as the function today, there any organization, or I think people who are out there who is pushing this message of sort of integrating into the system of exploitation. These are organizations that's functioning as the Big Six did at that particular time. As you can see, during the March on Washington, where Malcolm had mentioned the masses were looking to revolt, and the Big Six came in to sort of quell that revolt, and and change the messaging and take them in a different direction. So I think like the people, the masses of people who are viewing this and putting out and want to help spread the message of self-determination for Black people and having a nation of our own, like that has to be the message, the acquisition of land, and not integrating into the colony and being a part of this colony. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Jordan. And our final question, as we wrap this final session of this year, 2023's Black August Power Hour, is what should be the takeaway for anyone that was able to attend the Black Power Hour, whether they're listening now or whether they're listening in the future, and listening to discussions around the ideas of Malcolm X. So again, what should be folks' takeaway, those who are able to listen to this session, on the ideas of Malcolm X?
I think the significance of ideas and how they can have an impact on generations, on posterity. Because as you can see, we're sitting here discussing these ideas of Malcolm. right? And just like not underestimating the power of ideas to bring about movements and to bring about change. Because Malcolm, he wasn't just a talker, he was an organizer. He was a damn good organizer, right? And he had characteristics that is hard to find in a lot of people, because you have people who are great organizers and may not be great orators, right? Or people who are great orators and may not be great organizers. This is someone who was great at both. And so, with that being said, though, I think like, making sure that we don't underestimate the power of ideas, and to make sure that we are organizing, and that organizing is done with the objective of being a self-determined people, to acquire land and to be a free and independent nation. For me, I think anything else, will be going against what Malcolm like really stood for and believed.
And I just want folks to be mindful of time as we get first cycle, Jordan, and then Brother Khalid.
Thank you. I feel like the main thing I think people should take away from this is that, like, listening to all his words, all his speeches, it's all very valid. Like, literally today, it may be some work to like figure out the translations into how it applies now, but like literally everything on every aspect applies now. Like, we need our own. We need to be in charge of ourselves. That is what self-determination is. And we need our collectives.
Thank you for that, Jordan.
Peace. I hope that as we study, right, Malcolm was a great orator, but Malcolm put things into action, got outside, and he touched people, and he built with his people specifically, and he told us who we were. So I think that given the global context and everything going on, I hope that we remember to put Malcolm's words into action just like he did. We get outside, we touch the people, we build with the continent, and we love people. So yeah, that's what I think that we should take away.
Nice. Thank you for that. And Brother Khalid.
I think it's very important that people see Malcolm as a human being who was going through a process of human development, and that human development was within a certain historical, or it shared a certain historical backdrop, and that backdrop was post-World War II, the resurgence and intensification of anti-imperialist and anti-colonial and pro-national determination movements worldwide. Malcolm was a product of that, having been born when he was born, and having grown and having experienced and witnessed the things that he saw, witnessed, and experienced. Last but not least, the importance of not just courage, but the importance of faith. I mean, oftentimes when people proclaim that they have faith, and I'm not talking about one's religious or spiritual persuasion, I'm really talking about not what you believe in, but whether or not you truly believe what you say or what you claim. Malcolm, in many ways, was the embodiment of a person who really, really had faith, and whose courage was motivated by that faith, and it was put on full international display. So today, when we come across people who proclaim that they have faith in the people, they have faith in the movement, they have faith in the forces of history, dialectical materialism, they have faith in God, they have faith in the law, they have faith in Jesus, so forth and so on. But when you look at their behavior does not demonstrate that faith that they publicly proclaim. They lack courage. And so Malcolm was the embodiment of a person who had faith, and that faith was exemplified and demonstrated to the entire world by the courage and by the courageous positions and stance that he took around anti-colonialism and against white supremacy and economic injustice and exploitation here at home as well as abroad.
Thank you for that. I unite with all that has been said. Malcolm X is an organizer's organizer. He's the person that, if you love Malcolm, you will love the people and you will love revolution. And we just want to close this out by saying thank you for all those who attended and participated in the Power Hour. We brought organizers throughout the nation who are within the Black Liberation Movement to come together to revive the Black August Power Hour, to not just honor the legacy of Malcolm X, but also to uplift all those who fight for liberation. And so we want to continue this on, not just in a chat, but in your work. We hope that you deepen your work through this, and we really appreciate you joining us and hope that this was fruitful for you as we honor Malcolm X. Again, remember, there will be a symposium in Boston to honor 60 years to the day of A Message to the Grassroots, and we welcome all those who love Malcolm to join. Reach out to the organizers of this for more information, and you'll hear back from us. Thank you, everyone, and please go in peace.